to write poetry. Yeah. So, before we start, I'd like to get to know who's in the building. Can you give me some noise if you're a writer? Thank you. Some claps if you're a poet, a music lover, a rapper. Woo! Okay, and shout out for the staff for making this space for the open mic possible. Woo! So we are here today for our last under 21 open mic, which means that this is a completely youth-led space, which means this is our space. This is a safe space for anyone and everyone, even if it's your first time on the mic. It's also my first time emceeing. And our theme for today is health, healing, and poetry and grief. But all themes are welcome. So it's important for us to understand that we may be here for the poetry and music, but really, we are here to listen to each other and build our community. So before we get started, to make sure that this space is safe, we need to show our love and respect for anyone up here on stage. Can you give me some claps? Some snaps? Some stumps? Some woo! Some yes, poet? When I say yes, you say slay. Yes! Slay! Yes! Slay! Okay, thank you. So it is important for us to keep the energy for any poet that goes up on stage. And showing the love is important to make our poets feel affirmed. So, yeah. Thank you, thank you. Let me remind you that our theme for today is healing and poetry and grief. So up next, we have, on deck, we have Julia, repping from, oh yes, can I just give a shout out for all the people who signed up for the under 21 open mic? It is a very long list, y'all, I'm scared. Yeah. So yeah, on deck we have Julia repping from Berkeley, and up next we have Mahader. So can you guys give me the energy that we're gonna be giving our first poet, Mahader? Whoa! Keep it up, keep it up! Louder! Woo! Oh yeah. Repping from San Jose, we have Mahader telling their poem for today. Yeah, thank you. Woo!
Yeah? Okay, yeah. Hi, my name is Mahader, and this is my poem that I wrote on the BART here. Okay. Tell me why the quiet eats like bug bites, while I try to hold your memory tight. Smells like cut grass and pollen when you know it's about to make you sneeze. Please let me know what the remedy is, like half-melted cough drops sticking to the wrapper, a jagged, natural, painful, inconvenient torture, as the welded edges scrape the top of my mouth and ask me to be grateful. I praise and worship my medicine, chasing honey with lime, scalding soup in onion juice, anything to wipe my brain clean. You know I love you. You know I need to remember to eat and take my time to breathe. You know I'll be able to find my peace. Thank you.
One more time. Woo! Okay. So on deck we have Kai. sorry. And up next we have Julia. Can we get a round of applause for Julia?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. A trigger warning for eating disorders. And this is from the grief and healing workshops. The first thing you learn when recovering from an eating disorder is to allow yourself to grieve the body you're never going to have. And maybe I am only half healed because I think I'm still holding on to part of her. Maybe she's only just past dead, half buried. I can still hear the heartbeats. See, you never die, only live out a series of half lives, folding yourself into fragments until your fragments are mere fractions of what they used to be. What I used to be was conservative, eating only half my plate, having the weight of my bones to save face. My safe place was hungry, and it's funny. Now my sick self has achieved her dream of being the smallest thing in my body, just it wasn't in the way she thought it would be. I can still hear her crying out for her lost glory. The sick half of me broke into smaller pieces until you could barely even call her name without her blowing away. Now I gather what I have left of her and attempt to bury her body that is also mine somehow, and maybe I am only half holy because sometimes I still find myself sectioning off halves of myself in search of the hunger. But at least there is a half of me that wants to heal. True, maybe I'm only half of what I used to be, but at least that half is still here, still breathing, heart still beating. The thing I am learning from healing is that the spring is the appropriate time to bury the dead because the soil will be fresh for the living. And while a part of me will always be frozen and petrified, most of me is alive. I am alive and fighting through the thing that has been trying to kill me for the past 4 years. Each day, the need for hunger halves itself as I grow into a wholeness, a fullness, a rightness. Each day, dead parts of me have as I heal and learn what it means to be nourished. I'm learning to have my past selves and learning to keep the new ones whole. Thank you.
And yes, shout out to Spokes. Thank Spokes. So, okay. So, I'm Justin Marcelino, and I'm also part of the Spokes program. Speaking of which, we have our Spokes application is now open, right, Gabe? Yeah, okay. So, what is Spokes? Hold on, do I have it here? Okay, so Spokes is the Youth Speaks Youth Advisory Board, where our apps are now open and Spokes are now open, where young people from all over the Bay Area get paid to advise Youth Speak staff on all things from open mic, like what we have here right now, to how we make our slam spaces better. And of course, Backyard Youth Conference, which we'll be talking about later. If you're looking for like-minded people who are interested in cultural organizing and honing their artistic craft, learning about how to run a space like Youth Speaks, this is the place for you. So, up next, on deck, we have Claire Spence, repping from Palo Alto. And up next, we have Kai. Woo!
I met grief in footsteps crackling over slowly thawed leaves buried in snow. I saw her standing in the shadow of branches bare for the winter, but when I stepped closer, she vanished. Into rustles of wind relentlessly pulling twigs off my spine when crisp, cold air turned to fresh cycles of breathing in oxygen, breathing out carbon dioxide into trees to repeat the cycle again. I met grief before I knew. At every open grave casket sinking into the ground, before its meaning could sink through my head, but when I finally understood her purpose, she fell away in rows of grieved over concrete. I met her again on inconspicuous school day, walk home turned to bad news to throat constricting, and I let her in. Held her, waited for grief to bring healing, to bring joy, and as sad grievings turned to happy memories, she returned. Not to bring me away in a pent-up plane of emotions, but to celebrate their lives, to celebrate their memories, and to slowly heal.
Thank you, Kai. On deck, we have Elijah Wilson rapping from Concord, and up next, we have Claire Spence.
So before I want to read, I want to give a little bit of context. This piece is ekphrastic, which means it's written in conversation with another work of art. And incidentally, it's British modern artist Tracy Emin. So the story behind the piece, My Bed, is quite particular. In her 20s, Tracy Emin went through a very difficult depressive episode in which she was confined to her bed. And her bed essentially accumulated all the debris of her depression, takeout boxes, liquor bottles, even used condoms. And when she finally got out of bed, she donated her bed to the British Museum of Contemporary Art. So I think the piece raises a lot of interesting questions about what the bed means as a space of vulnerability, and also what it means to kind of put that trauma on display. So this is My Bed, Tracy Emin, 1998. And on TV, I rerun the rapture, watch the water swallow my wrists, our faces flickering beyond recognition. God, forgive the mess I have made of my life. Forgive the matches, forgive the blades, forgive the pills clinging the bed sheets, each capsule a pupilled eye. Forgive my body its dyings, the way I circle each month like a gambler hoping for a different outcome, the pitch dark stain in my underwear. In high school, C sang, I bought the toughest rope they had and it gave out on me. I stood out on the tracks like light to be swallowed and I couldn't do it. We sat very still so as not to wake the birds. Enough. Let my arms raise me, church. I could spend my whole life apologizing, but we don't have that kind of time. C's stunned body felled back to earth as though called, the fish hook of my body shuddering open to rainfall. I want a garden too wild for fear to spoil. I want a love to outlive the hurt of my body. I want to wake up and find you next to me, our bed still damp with river water, both of us clawed through with dark and yet still breathing.
Thank you for that wonderful poem, Claire. On deck, we have Uriel repping from San Lorenzo. And up next, we have Elijah Wilson. But before that, sorry. we have Backyard Youth Conference this coming June. Join us for our second annual Backyard Youth Conference happening at the Youth Speaks office here June 12th to 16th, which is a free summer camp hosted by our very own Spokes Youth Advisory Board. Expect writing, workshops, the poetry prom, open mics, and some panels. Registration is open now. San Francisco residents eligible up to $300 if you attend 4 days of Backyard Youth Conference. And for more information, there's also a flyer up there near the door, and there's also a QR code. So, thank you. Let's give it up for Elijah.
We good? All right. So before I start this poem, trigger warning for self-harm. Upon my body lies the sky, a mud-brown universe sprinkled with stars, a canvas of Hershey hue dusted with the memory of hurt, the largest organ with the biggest of secrets. Of course, you will never see the sky in its entirety because shame has formed storm clouds in the form of linen. Fabric covers the shine of my skin, covers years of neglect, hides the consequences of actions I partook in when I wasn't even fully there. A new shirt pulls the wool over the eyes of everyone who never knew me, all so my face can portray what truly matters, normalcy. Neurotypical tendencies and mental stability, a mouth that speaks just like the girl next door because we see her skin. Her skin sparkles with coats of peaceful living. The alabaster gleam of her pearly white teeth shines the light she holds because she never knew darkness. Never knew of a pillow saturated with tears, never heard the snap of a leather belt at 2 a.m. Never felt the coldness of neglect, never understood the need to shove a part of herself in a closet full of knives. Little girl next door never knew the burn of a bulbous needlehead so she could feel anything at all. Never had to learn that a razor can't cut out the parts of herself that she. Stars are born in the clouds of dust across galaxies. Turbulence in these clouds create knots like the ones in my stomach as I stare in the mirror wondering if too much skin was showing, if the picture created by the dot to dot of ugly brown scars even made a real person. These knots eventually gain enough sufficient mass and collapse under the weight of its own gravity. According to NASA, not all stars collapse at a steady pace. If NASA only knew how right they were, if the researchers could map the time it took for this knot in my stomach to explode into something piercing and sharp, how fast the clouds of dust clouded my perception of myself. But after all that turbulence and turmoil, that dust of the never-ending universe condenses and forms, and from it comes something beautiful, a fiery inferno of new life and energy. On my body, I hold the night sky, each dot and spot holding a dust particle so strong to go from even nothing to everything.
Thank you, Elijah. And as we say, all the art stuff that we do goes somewhere in the universe and that energy stays the same. So can we look at our neighbors and tell them, I got you? And to the other side, I got you too. Yeah, thank you. So on deck, we have Rose Garcia repping from San Lorenzo. And up next, we have Uriel. So can we give a round of applause for Uriel?
I call this cry, never tell him shit. Pretending a trend of a mind to assume my brain is a tool. The color I see in front isn't as vivid as I remember it used to be. God forgive me for the days of my sins, of when I should have wept and put my trust and faith in you. Amen. Sitting alone with my head in the clouds, speaking the truth. Just wonder how I was family, but it was fuck me. I was high as shit. I'm a child of the hood. I fit in your shoes. We just alike, me and you. Shit, grew up in a trap or a house to house too. Shit, starved myself so my little siblings could eat too. You understand me because I nearly speak. A tone by a melody of a beat is a way to my heart. Speak to me, we can vibe and groove too. The hood ain't like how the news portrays us as violent and terrifying. Psychopaths too. Just don't chase the hood or the hood will chase you. Once you're cornered, guess what? Your hopes and dreams die with who you are too. Writing poetry is who makes me who. Paper and pen is to write. Paper and pen to write makes me who makes me feel like Dr. Seuss. The way I want to make kids feel like life is all okay, never too late to change. That's about it.
Thank you for speaking your truth. Okay, so let's try to breathe in from all these energies that we're feeling right now. So the box method, holding it in for breathing in, hold, then out, hold, breathe in, hold, then out. Okay, so up next we have, on deck we have Victoria, repping from San Lorenzo again. And then up next we have Rose, also repping from San Lorenzo. Woo.
Hi. The poem that I'll be reading today is called Passion Fruit. Pursed lips, furrowed eyebrows. Maracuyas sat uncomfortably bright and colorful. The yellow tang bounced back in its Palo de Mayo melody. Unfamiliar and not yet known, but this flavor was supposed to be home. Nicaraguan flavors were supposed to sit comfortably, yet the needles of tanginess punctured through my taste buds. My taste palette was foreign. To Nicaraguans, to Latinos, to the outside world, passion fruit presented a puzzle. Confusion racked my mind. Porque maracuyá es nicaragüense. How could I dislike my fruits? The sweet syrup of being Latina. Comunidad, a word across the Spanish language, but it granted me no sanctuary. Endless explanations on the deaf ears of my comunidad. Difference ruled my taste buds. The seeds of language bitter in my mouth. The vines that grew out of my lips were incorrect Spanish. My roots unable to take hold in the eroded soil of our community garden. I fertilized myself through assimilation. I held a pinprick tongue, able to roll my R's, yet a crumpled cacophony of sound came through at the twisting tongue-tied vines to correct what was second nature. Bahia was then as incorrect. Lacking pollination, I grasped at the soil of another ideal imposed on me. Nicaraguan Spanish soil would leave me barren. My freshman English teacher's tongue was fluently unapologetic. scattered Spanish words sparkled in my eyes. I wanted my tongue to speak security, to hold the aftertaste of passion fruit in every breath and grow fruit vines in every word. I watered the plant of self-acceptance by emulating her confidence, by growing my own passion fruit vine, fertilizing the soil that held every word I'd once let be deemed incorrect. I juiced every drop of tropical flavor and let the sweetness hit my tongue, tanginess wrap around my skin in sticky sweet syrup. I filled my own pitcher and owned myself. Mi propio fresco de maracuyá will dance palo de mayo on the tongue of others. Mi comunidad and every diverse aspect of our refreshments is held on the agua fresca table. Horchata, jamaica, passion fruit, piña, one and the same in sugary sweetness.
Thank you, Rose. Up next, we have Victoria. But before that, y'all, we are cutting off the first half of the open mic. And we'll be continuing after our featured poets, which is Preeti Bangani and Minerva from Spokes. Woo! Okay, so let's give it up for the last poet of the first half, Victoria. Make some noise, y'all.
Hi. Okay. So, this poem in particular means a lot to me on this specific day because it's a milestone for me. So, I did not realize until it was a spectacle of my past that my grief had not begun the moment he told me he no longer loved me, but the moment I realized he didn't. December 31st, 2021, I wrote to him, "It's my goal to be the best version of myself it can be, and you help me be that," in my New Year's text to him. Not a day goes by where I don't still believe that. But back then, I hadn't known you wouldn't be right next to me while it happened. March 20th, 2022, I wrote in my notes app about how much I missed him. Even if he was right next to me, he felt so far away. And it went on for all of March until April. April 28th, 2022, I wrote in my notes app a list of things I'd been meaning to talk to him about, things I never did get to say. April seeped into May, and I hadn't heard an "I love you" for ages, but I persisted. I couldn't give up on my first romance. I needed him. He helped me be me. Till sometime in May, he said to me, "I think we both know." And we did. We both knew. Yet I knew that there had been a shift in my hungry heart because I didn't text him the day after, or the day after that, or even the week after. In fact, I never did. Instead, on May 25th, I wrote in my journal, "You liar, you damn liar." And then again in June, and a little bit in July, when I convinced myself I was over him. But soon, school would begin, and I knew I would have to face his lying eyes. And then I saw him for the first time, August 8th, 2022. I wrote in my poem to him, "That night that you had said something to me. You loved me, and I said I hated you. I wish you had said you hated me too." All the what-ifs I had to create in my mind, all the what-ifs I had to ask to create my own ending. Pathetically, I would cry about that because it still hurt me. Because pretending to have forgotten what you look like, I had to remember so clearly what I actually didn't forget. It was because I loved his smile and his eyes and his laugh and the way his hands would run through his hair that puts me right back to where I was that day in May, where I wanted to close my eyes and not watch him leave. October and November would come around, and we slowly gravitated towards the closure we never did have. We burned into some kind of friendship, sitting on top of the books about us so neither of us could open them. New Year's would come again, and I looked back at that text and back at how far I'd come and just smiled. Not for joy, not for sadness, but with hidden hope that it could still mean something again this year. January 15th, 2023, he texted me. We texted, and finally, months and months later, we talked about it, about the breakup, about what really happened, how he actually felt, how I really felt. Closure, finally holding my hand how I desperately wanted it to. March 19th, 2023, I wrote in a poem, "He would always have a home with me," because it was then that I realized, even without him, I could be the best version of myself. That alone made me write only ever beautiful things about our love story. Even if it was just a fairy tale now, just a memory, then so be it. And he said to me in one of those days that I'd become a better person. He reminded me of all the beauty I had conquered in my heart by doing what once felt impossible, grief.
And May 12th, 2023, which is today, 1 year since our story wrote on all the pages it could, long before had I been grieving, I had forgiven him, even with the hungry heart, because it would always be ready to forgive him. On May 12th, 2022, I cried at the thought of not having him. On May 12th, 2023, I cried at the fact that I was becoming the best version of myself I could be. Forgiven and unrestrained and free of those hefty pages, I was better now. We were better now. I guess it can get better after all.
That was very beautiful, Victoria. Shout out to all the people we have loved and loved. Okay, so for our first feature, who is also a spokes member, we have Minerva Kamara. Is that right? Minerva Kamara, whose work has notably been featured by KLW 91.7, Youth Speaks, The Offing, and the San Jose Museum of Art. Wow. She is the first place winner in the Bringing the Light series, a 2022 Santa Cruz Clara County Youth Poet Laureate finalist, a member of the 2022 Brave New Futures team, and a member of the Youth Speaks Spokes Board. Off the page, she can be found throwing informal performances for her companions, tending to her various pets, and sewing vintage-inspired attire. Can we get a round of applause for Minerva?
Sorry about that, I guess. I don't know. It's very hard to listen to your own bio with a straight face and take yourself seriously. I don't. But on an opposite, ironic that I say this after that, trigger warning for my entire set, I guess. Let's go with substance abuse, SA, SH, and suicide. All right, thank you. Today, I worry about revelations. This is tall. I was 13 once, and I thought I knew everything. I won't worry about boredom. Tragedy has come and gone, and we could lie in your childhood bed. Or we could kill ourselves. Or watch a movie, though there's none we haven't seen. When I call my first love again and she says, "After all these years, you sound exactly the same." And I'll laugh between splitting us sticks of extra mint gum. I'll call it a Schrodinger's forever. Each homoerotic friendship bound by our kindred girlhood. I'm not leaving you. Before boys in our blood, when we knew sex wasn't a word for hands, we knew this and we knew nothing. Now, at 17, at the age of realization, knowing only what's missing, that though no one's sad when the beat drops, we're only really happy when alone. The time W showed us the track marks, and I'm only 2 years older, but not enough to know what to say. And I think this must be what all the songs are about. Being 17 and white-winged and finally recognizing our new angles. And no, W's story is not about me. When he kissed another boy in our high school bathroom and said, "I finally know who I am," we were just kids after all. And 13, a month before I got sent away in love with the color of my own angst. 14, when I vowed never to cut my hair again because I loved having something to hide behind. 15, the boudoir shots in the public park trying to look like we belonged to someone. And 13 again, our hair watercoloring over the living room rug, knowing something incomplete. All right, I have not, oh my gosh, okay, whatever, papers. I have not read any new pieces in a long time at one of these things. I think it's been, I feel like it's been a year somehow, maybe more like 8 months. But I think senior year really takes that out of a lot of people. college apps. Woo. Yeah. But something I did have the wonderful opportunity to write new poems for, and I'm obviously reading some new pieces here, but a month ago I got to perform at the San Jose Museum of Art. And it was funny because back when I was doing that, I did not know that I would be doing a set centered around grief and healing, but I wrote a poem about that, fate or not fate, or the random coincidental strangeness of our universe. But I think something that I was really thinking of when writing it is, well, for me in my life, I think I've known one of the most pertinent themes in my life has been loss. And I mean in the literal sense, death, but also in the most subversive way, in I think a way that we don't talk about as much, is the loss that we come to know so intimately as people who don't always have the privilege of being able to conform to whatever systems of oppression, or who weren't able to get the lives that they, grew up wanting because of whatever obstacles. And this poem is really about that. And yeah. If I were to say we knew nothing of grief, I would be wrong. For what speaks more of grief than a child and her first lost tooth? Small, white, jagged, than of innocence overflowing of the gums, than a man on the corner screaming to me, girl in the red dress like I had Lolita eyes and went home to become clean, clean again, clean enough, and we called grief recollection. Then, full of hysteria and realizing we are not exceptional, to our heels, a clatter on the prom room floor when I said simply, there was sadness in our suffering, saddest in our lonesome, and sadder yet for our similarity. That again and again, the sting of heartbreak, loose teeth and lost earrings, like daughters of epiphany, we are not exceptional just because we still hope for fairy tales. This world is an ode to the part of me that wants to be young forever, as if youth means freedom, as if age is looking for a long-bitten past. But remember, we made it out by the skin of our teeth, choking on a softness I was so certain would be the death of me. Because still, like a child, I didn't want to go home alone. And here we learned to hope, becoming something beyond our own self-recognized images. Here we learned to haunt, growing out of smallness and into something bigger, recognizing first the curveless traces of picturesque bedside bodies, knowing even with age we will still be vain, but left gumming the gray casings of regret and playing make-believe with nostalgia. But grief was the monster we called hunger, who overstepped longing to make us better fools. I know this because my mother felt the same as well. Listless and love-born and overflowing with dreams to make ourselves mischievous, hiding teeth under our pillows, hoping for a magic that is not just the delusion of sorrow, like this, the becoming. All right. Yeah, that's the piece. Thank you. Sorry for not making the end clear. So my last piece is one I think a lot of you have heard a lot of times because I did it a lot last year, but I took a long break from performing it. I did it once over the winter at a very small event, but I think for me this piece had really taken on a different persona when it was used, well, when I chose to use it a lot in competition spaces, which I mean I think are wonderful places to really showcase what we're capable of, but this piece to me really showcased a lot of sadness and disappointment and regret, and it wasn't something I was proud of for a long time, but this piece is also very special to me because I'd originally written it before it was a poem about, mental health and a poem about watching your loved ones struggle and struggling yourself, and also some Shakespeare. I was playing Juliet at the time. Funny. But before it was that, it was really a love poem. I'd written it actually a week from today. The person I'd written it for should have been 18. Her birthday's May 23rd. And I'd really written this poem originally to be a love poem, a way of saying, I know you had to go, and 10 years later, I'm still here, and I'm doing okay. But in the middle of writing it, sorry, there's a long story that goes along with this piece, but I really wanted to share it because I think it really relates to the theme. But in the middle of writing it, I was kind of reaching the end of like a very close relationship and realizing that that was a very, very bad idea. And also, at the same time, one of my closest long-term friends had a very violent suicide attempt, like literally the day after I wrote the first half. And so this poem really became an ode to the friendships and the hope we had for each other and the lives we wanted to live. And so I really wanted to share it again, though, I think, because this stage as well is really where I think I first started to find my own identity within poetry and really started to make my own voice. And this piece was definitely a part of that at the same time. So this is a new familiar. For those who know it, you know it. All right. How desperate we must be to become ourselves, to like ourselves and suck forth the marrow before discarding the seed, making an easy mess to choke down to shards before losing the next to an unrequited dream. Another party. You're drunk, and I'm so sober it hurts. Enough to notice the disposable teeth and cups imprinted in knuckles. In this scene, I am perched atop the granite countertop, asserting my queerness against the chattering grayscale, lost in the cliches of the teenage melodrama phase. I used to write songs about fall and how there were still beautiful things. If only we were still here to share them. I'll be old now, you know? Call the home and return me back to my mother in the end. There must be something elegant about being sad when it's raining. But I will laugh to the Bollywood beat and the American dream of Chipotle. I'll be good now, you know? Brave the ache of irony, the wasted time and sauntering colors, only to catch a year in rhyme, mistook refusing common sense for commonality, so I'm radically rational. In reality, where the only gods we ever face is each other. When sadism is acquired, lust and love are not too different. Only us wanting to share in each other's weakness and say that it's okay to fall and feel it all and break the boundaries of what it means to be human, here and alive. Then picked the wrong cure and mistook it for the right medication. I don't know how we started talking about us when we were talking about you. Show up on my doorstep with a melon and a jug of lemonade, because it's the kind of thing people do in novels. I'll still be sick then, still in a sweatshirt and PJs and a gaunt hollow in place of a voice. Still wish you never came because I don't like watermelon, but I love the sentiment. So here we are, of opposing skylines. You're so high, I think you must be dying, and I'm so high, I wish I was dying. I'll be good now because I have nothing, and yet too much to share. It is in the grief that we learned to live when you became all silhouettes. The slaughter is over, and I am alone again, letting the epiphanies of yet another relapse wash out until delirium returns. To my thick skin and insecurities, I'd like to be ethereal. The kind that the next autistic nobody with a nose buried in the old masters might see themselves in. The endless stream of evolution, and my father saying the metaverse will be the new internet. Once I was an invisible child, before I was a skeleton. I never was truly a quiet girl. Never did know how to not rattle cages when all we want is to matter, to mean something to each other, not breaking the people we became. I don't agree with the conclusion, but I can empathize with each revelation. Watching the droplets intersect against the car window and look out at our world lost in color. Thank you everyone so much, and apologies for the, yeah.
Spokes. Let's give it up for Minerva one more time. And let us share the same energy for our next featured poet, Preeti Vangani. She grew up in Mumbai, India, and is the author of Mother Tongue Apologize, RLFPA Editions 2019. Selected as the winner of the RL Poetry Prize, her work has appeared in 3 Penny Review, Gulf Coast, The Margins, among other journals, and has been supported by UCross, Jurassic, and California Center for Innovation. She is the recipient of the 2022 Penn or Robert J. Dow Short Story Prize for Emerging Writers. An alumni of the program, she teaches at the MFA program at University of San Francisco. Okay.
So much for having me. An essential part that the bio misses out is that I used to be a poet mentor with Youth Speaks for over 2 years. So really, it just feels like coming back home. Although the time that I used to work at Youth Speaks, we did most of our work by pivoting to online Zoom classes. So this feels really special that we can be together in person doing the Friday slams together, and the energy is fantastic. So thank you for calling me back, Gabe, Sandy, EJ. Jada, you are somewhere out there. It was just so wonderful to get to work with y'all and come back in this way. And quick plug for the after school workshops. It was a space I loved being a part of during the pandemic. It's what brought me a lot of joy, and we've been still doing that on Wednesdays, and I will be teaching that next Wednesday. So tune in 4:30 to 6:30. You can come to the office or you can join online. I hope I'm doing a good plug-in. And my relationship to this theme is perhaps what got me to poetry. So before I started writing poems or stories, I used to work in the corporate world for 8 years. I went to business school and, was on this very swinging path to become, whatever the highest position in marketing would have been. But 8 years into my corporate life, I sort of pivoted into the arts and started writing poems. And I slowly started realizing that it was through poetry that I was processing the passing of my mother. I lost my mother when I was very young. And my mother was very young. I was 22 and my mother was 43. And so a lot of my work is centered around grief. But because I have been writing for over 10 years now, I feel that, grief always has this nasty quality of pushing us into corners that are perhaps much more sadder and more sorrowful than the memory of the person in our life. And I wanted to acknowledge that there is also a joy in remembering. So a lot of the work that I have been doing recently tries to acknowledge joy in those various ways, some of which you'll hear in the poems that I read. And I also want to begin by thanking the San Francisco Arts Commission. It is because of their financial support that I have been able to, plug this project into action. And the workshops that I'm hosting with Youth Speaks are also centered in thinking about joy, but while thinking about the people or the things that we've lost in our lives, and how can we, bring pleasure into the writing of who we remember. Thank you. This first poem is called Marlboro Men. And it should actually be called Navy Cut, which is the cigarette my dad actually smokes. But it's a very low-priced cigarette, and I wanted to elevate our standard a little bit. So I called it Marlboro Men. Joint at the hip by my mother's death, my father and I fight like cats in heat. To become more mother, I nag him about his smoking. I can still smell the hospital's bleach where his jittering hand steadied her feeding tube, except I was barely there. I will never question if he employed all his money and mine to save her. He will never ask why I couldn't just leave college for her bedside. Like an expletive withheld, a cigarette stays pressed between his lips and on his mind confidence that we are now one marriage, each away from happiness. I populate wedding profiles to find a man least like him, he to land a wife most like mother. We lock horns hunting for midnight nibbles, and he is certain I have been sleeping around. I have been sleeping a lot, under the shroud of my mother's silk dupatta. Tonight he is a widower with triple X in his web cache. Tonight I'm a two-short skirt numbed by sloppy missionary. To become more mother, he buys me hot breakfast, how he pirouettes his breath to balance the sambar packet, flimsy as a house of cards. Not a drop spills. We never spill a drop of liquid grief except on the Sunday he yelled, "You never loved her." And I yelled back, "Fuck, go fuck yourself." My virginal F word to him, like a punch made of freedom and the spirit that is perhaps still derailing my mother's soul from reaching heaven. Instead of sorry, offers of ice cream swirl between our barely open doors. Instead, he smokes double. Instead, her maiden name, 2 syllables that could mean she who ran or a rebel. I got them inked on my ankle. Slouched in figure 4 on the pot that night, I nursed the open wound of my tattoo with saline. Excavated from my bra my first ever cigarette. Sweaty, limp coping stick. Stolen from my father's drawer. I inhaled a long inhale, believing the longer I held it, the more it would free me, but my throat gave in. I coughed out a big cloud, and the girl she once was at once covered in our one smoke. Thank you, y'all. So over the pandemic, at the time that I'm talking March and April 2020 when vaccines were nowhere in the conversation and, people were busy spraying sanitizer over fruits and vegetables. I was also equally hyperventilating. And a part of that is because I have rheumatoid arthritis. I've had it for the last 15 years. And I was like, I need to get over my hyperventilation. And there is no better way to do that than making a list of everything that can possibly kill me. So I made a list of all the things. And this poem is called It Almost Kills Me. Arthritis, its triggers. A damp morning, Fahrenheit drops and rain, tannins in red wine, Stairmaster climb, hills and heels, hills on heels, gluten, nightshade, hard spirits. Not enough steroids, the wrong steroids. Stiff neck sitting cross-legged, the hand therapist affixing a strip of foam around my toothbrush handle. Squeezing a nail cutter with opposable thumbs that no longer oppose. My mother aching for God to do his job. Clumps of my mother's hair coming off that I did not witness her silken fall. Regrets, confusing as side effect pamphlets. Breast Cancer Month and pink bows on children's heads. Jodie Comer on Killing Eve, the woman in the sequin dress on 8th and Market with her rolly backpack whispering to her good poodle, "Ain't no one gonna touch us, baby." Britney then and Britney now. The blues and afternoons my fingers almost don't shake holding the ear of a cup. Amy Winehouse singing When I Come Back. Immigration policy, that it was mummy who got all our passports made, that hers will never have a stamp. The Second Amendment, scent of lemon trees and Mount Tam brie with dried figs on a cracker, explosion of salt and the fruit's good sugar, its sun on my tongue, this insufficient body, this body, well or not, a well-off want. The ways you and I not. The word not as bounty, as in that's not nothing. Forest fires, lightning, my vibrator's fastest setting. Right. This poem is again a tribute to my parents, and it takes place in the time just a few months before my mother passed away. Placebo. What sits like grief in my throat about that time my parents were on a train back home from an appointment with the oncologist. Although when the patient is metastatic, the visit should really be called disappointment. Is not that they were so easily swindled, became targets, or their fear was preyed upon by a man who, perhaps judging by my mother's carved head, sold them an untraditional remedy, a powder made of herbs with 24-karat gold dust. Proven to work, just mix it in water, get your life back, the man whispered as the train hiccuped. Now, my father is not gullible, but imagining an empty bed while mummy, already shrinking in it, must have relaxed his rationality. And I wonder if it was a rhyming image of my mother's recovery he saw in a dream, a rhythmic shimmer of leaves perhaps, or scallops of lace in her dupatta waltzing in the wind. Or was it the simple, electric restlessness of a sleepless man that convinced my father to phone the crook, trade thick bundled cash for a polythene packet of coarse crumbles, even if a jeweler later confirmed the gold was obviously fake? What sits like grief within me is not conjuring the mathematical castles Papa sketched around that drowned money. Paint job, new tiles, mutual funds, or what my mother dreamed up for it. A fully automatic washing machine, a hanging macrame swing in the balcony. Rather, what stings is that mummy, who otherwise Einsteined our kitchen's 100 spices and seeds into antidotes for our ailments. Then, stirring the spoon round and round in the steel glass, gulped that concoction of glittering dust and desperation, and what transpired back and forth between her resigned chin and his optimistic gaze in that moment, like the saffron crackles of the fire around which they were once wedded, those momentary dots of blaze that were suspended in celebratory air, were golden speckles of hope's flyaways, flaming hot, binding, disappearing. All right. And then, in an attempt to sort of expand the field of mourning, or how better to live with what we have, I started making a list of all the mothers around me. I started seeing mothers in, the world as it is, the world after having come to the States. I've been living here for 7 years, and I wanted to invite all of my new geographies into my idea of motherhood. So I wrote this poem. It's called Raising Mothers. This morning, she came undone into my arthritic fingers in the form of an easy tear perforation on the milk carton. That was a very small kind of mother. Smaller than the mother I encountered in myself waiving late fees working at the library when the nursing student in finals week eating Oreos for dinner came begging for an extension. No fret, I said, my register lackluster compared to the mother I found in the purposeful banter the buck-toothed guy in seat 12B on Heathrow to Bombay engaged me in to distract me from my pain. Cramps coiling under my knees, every nerve sharp as teeth, grinding down a prayer for the prednisone to usher in, the pill also a mother, dissolving my aches, invisible as the grace I trace in the blanks between my friend's fingers, chopping walnuts, cooking me aida gallina, seasoning the chicken with mother-like accuracy. The sense of her knowing I have long been motherless, itself a mother to me, a gold Virgin Mary on her pointer, how it birthed rainbows in the sun-drenched women's clinic as we waited for her to get an IUD, an option our mothers would perhaps unapprove of. And this option too, a kind of mother. And the ghost of my own mother, my father conjures, pointing to the corner table in Kailash Parbat, a restaurant by a cowshed where they first met. Sipping filter coffee amid bovine groans, chaperones at arm's length, and it is hard to not be amused when my father, now motherless and wifeless, having brought doctors and priests to both women in vain, still finds it in him to be a mother to himself. Wide-grinned, he whistles, combing his balding head before bed. Ask him why, and he'll say, "What if Julia Roberts comes in my dreams tonight?" What is it to mother if not to suspend moon-like faith in the face of a stubborn night, like the milky plainness with which my stepmother said while shelling peas, "Your father," he raises his hand on me. Her admission making her more my mother than I ever allow her to be. Her a linear erasure of my one mother, now my mother's skin, the two women now sharing a skin memory. Look how she pendulums her feet at the sewing machine, altering a paisley dress for me, and says, "Try it now." This is a poem which takes the form of an abid. An abid is a kind of poem that is written in the very, very early hours of dawn by raging insomniacs, and it involves a leave-taking or a goodbye or a farewell of some kind. So this is Abid with Mother Gone, and it takes place in the arena between De Young and the Cal Academy of Sciences. It's one of my most favorite parts of the city, that circle. Abid with Mother Gone. And then it came back to me as I heard a young boy practice his violin under the concrete canopy of the park's amphitheater, the Italian phrase, dolce far niente, the sweetness of doing nothing. The violin, like a prayer pressed between his chin and shoulder, are one virus that had perhaps pushed him out of home, alone taking his lesson on his phone screen, with no audience to applaud, except a dad chasing his daughter chasing bubbles, and isn't observing a toddler tailing bubbles the equivalent of sneaking in a mid-morning nap. Oh yes. Look how they were all occupied in their business of joy, and I sat with a croissant so buttery I could seduce it, but really, I was just tired of the news, tired of counting the dead, then remembering the dead. I sat with coffee I did not need. I was beyond awake, hallucinating the eucalyptus was my playful grandfather, gone last week, oh no. Gone we knew when he wouldn't even eat soup. What is the feeling that the smell of trees fills one with? Which is so much like slowing down our pace wherever we were, so Grandpa could catch up. Dear world, I prayed, go slow today. Take one person less in your mortal stead, lend us all an extra hour, and we will make no productive claim of calling it this time a saving. Instead, a stillness of feeling triumphantly useless, like the myriad minutes spent looking through thick branches to spot the singing blue jay, knowing the bird, like happiness, will have flown elsewhere before you can see it. Thank you. All right, I'll do one last poem. Thank you for being such an encouraging audience. And because I said, like I said, I was so damn tired of writing sad-ass elegies, I tried writing a happy one. What this elegy wants. What this elegy wants is to never be caught alone at an Italian bakery buying a dozen cream horns, half confessing, half flirting with the uninterested cashier. These are my mom's favorite. Are, not were. Not the quiver in the finger over the cursor contributing to a cancer research fund. How much giving, after all, is good enough for grief to give up? How much research? I have seen my father research a new bride, second chance and clean start and well-meaning aunts. I have seen my mother's white nightie hang behind the bathroom door like a god's robe and compared the divine Rogan Josh, my new mother's stews, to my old mother's, and her roti's fluff and her sabzi, the littlest flaw in her chutney, her every endearment, a splinter in my ears. Grief, you grumpy mother-in-law, this elegy is tired of you, as in housewife tired, as in housewife staying quiet about abusive husband tired, as in if my mother were to see me, which I'm certain she can, as I rummage through the squalor of grief, through a portal where cream horns are unlimited and free, she'd continue to snack unbothered with flakes of pastry sprouting on her chin and say, exhausted, exhausted yet excited as she would so often get when chasing down a cockroach, scurrying around the house with a long broom. A task both barbaric and bewildering. How once she had the apocalypse surviving beast trapped in the broom's hairs, she'd smack the broom over and over against the floor and with her other hand draw out the wiggling enemy by its antenna, fling it right outside the window with a "Go be free," as if that freeness was hers. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for being so wonderful.
All right, let's show some love for our featured poets, Preeti and Minerva. So, if y'all are enjoying this event, say yeah. If you appreciate what people are saying, say hell yeah. Okay, so while you're here, you can do us a big favor by filling out the survey on the back. That it's a very brief survey to let us know what you like about the show and how we can make it better, be a better space to make it be better for you. So, are you ready to finish this, the last part for our last under 21 open mic event? Okay, kicking it off. I will just say the order for everyone. Up next, we have Acacia. And then on deck, we have Jade. Then we have Jada. Then we have Marina. Am I saying it right? And then Kaden. And the very last one, George. Okay. So let's make sure to keep up the same energy we've been giving all our poets. So can we make some noise? When my mic, let's play a game. When my mic is over here, I want everyone as quiet as possible. And then, once the mic goes up, I want the energy to become more vibrant and loud. And with love and affection that we can share our poets for anyone who's up here on stage. So, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's make some noise as we have Jade from Daly City on deck. And then up next, Acacia, repping from San Lorenzo.
I'm performing 2 poems, and my first one is called My Lavender Ribbon. When I said my first word, they decorated me with a lavender ribbon around my neck. Everyone praised me for it growing up. They were fond of me because I was never a burden to other people's mothers. Creative, kind, and above all, contained. I was easier to maintain if I acted like a doll on display, hushed little baby every single day, so I kept the ribbon on, like it was the only part of me that kept me sane. Lavender flowers for grace, silence, and purity. They told me that Asian girls shouldn't roam around with a bare neck. She said that my loudness was improper, that silence was peace, and how I shouldn't disturb it by taking my ribbon off. This ribbon started to feel itchy on me. I was rather claustrophobic as it wrapped tighter around my neck as I grew older, suffocating me with minimizing air to breathe, only to let out a wheeze of only everything you want me to say. Tighter and tighter, it was to the point where I could no longer speak. My vocal cords have snapped, and I couldn't tell if it were my veins or my words thumping inside the walls of my brain, exploding in my mind so restrained like deceased whales, desperate to leave, rotting in between the crevices of my teeth, because I have lived my days tense with an overgrown collar, praying that it'll ever be loosened someday. This ribbon around my neck, tangled like silver necklaces balled up in an old jewelry box, chained up with a diary lock. This lavender ribbon has been painfully stitched across my lips, and you cannot hear me. There are people who are suffocated with words you say, with pins poking them, bleeding through their colors, yet I sit here complaining about my coquette ribbon for a color. You are laughing at me because I am ungrateful. but I remain sitting here with a lavender ribbon that now matches the tone of my purpling skin. It is not an exaggeration. We are all left with permanent scars. I have lost all my blood circulation, and you have the motionless nerve to choke out this validation as if your bare hands are strangling me even more, silencing me even more to the death of my heart and words. My lavender ribbon, once silky but now deteriorating. My head's at the verge to be fallen off, but I'm still hesitant to tear it off. I have worn this embellishment my whole life. It cannot be ripped away with a blade or a knife. Therefore, I will spend my time untying every loop, every knot until my fingers are bruised and embroidery, memorizing to the day that I say my truest first words, will be the day where I'm no longer shamed quiet as just that Asian girl. So treat me no equally of a pin drop in a lifeless room, free from this lavender ribbon that I promise never again to be loomed. I have a second one. It's an old poem that I wrote during the first half of high school. And trigger warning, it mentions about depression, and it's called Drowning to Sleep. Please don't wake me up. It feels so good to sleep forever. It feels so real to live unconsciously, feeling drowsy. Don't want to feel tired again. Can I dream a little more? Waking up doesn't seem to be working with me. With eyes that could barely open, everything feels so sore and heavy. Sad to see everyone go, but I would have wanted this for me. I was only capable of loneliness. I find it unusual how I can't coordinate my own mind and body. Constantly, I've been living in slow motion. When you lose track of time, people have become distant islands. Floating underwater, air bubbles escaping my every breath. I feel safer drowning in endless thoughts, but I know it hurts me. If I let myself sink, I know I'll disappear for good. How I feel so drawn to the gentle sounds of waves. I don't realize that I'm getting weaker as it fills up my hollow lungs. Constantly, I've been gasping for oxygen. My mind tells me that I don't belong on land, even if I can't swim. When I open my eyes, I feel so devastated and confused as to why my heart was still beating. Waking up on cold sand, my only thoughts are to dive back in to a place I was already used to. Let me drown in lovely deep end where water was always blue.
Thank you for your breathtaking poems, Acacia. And on deck, we have Jada. And up next, we have Jade repping from San Lorenzo. Let's give it up for Jade. Oh.
Oh, wow, what a shame. Yes, please. Thank you, I appreciate you. All right, hello, what a lovely crowd, thank you. So my name is Jade Boss. I'm a poet, photographer, and artist here in the Bay Area. I wanted to introduce my poetry books to you guys. Thank you. So yes, I have one called Healing Letters and For You, My Moon, All My Stars. Healing Letters is basically about like letters I wrote with people that I've parted with, so it's like a sense of closure for me. And then For You, My Moon, All My Stars is about me overcoming a relationship that ended in 2020, and later down the line, that ex ended up drugging and raping me, so there's also the story about that. But my intention is to take my trauma and turn it into art that can be meditation for other people. So thank you for listening with me tonight. For the theme of this poem, of the event tonight, I didn't know it was about grief, to be honest, but I wrote a poem that was perfect for it. So, all right. I grew up with the wisdom of my mother, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. So shout out to my mom. Happy Mother's Day. But this is going to be a piece about my father. And how his absence affected me and the relationships with men around me. And it's titled Middle Generation of the Empire. My father followed me on TikTok, but has not messaged me in 17 years and 30 months. It's funny to me how he'd rather be one of my followers than to claim me as his daughter. Commenting, "I'm so proud of you" on an old video doesn't make it feel true. He wasn't there to teach me what it means to be a father, but the absence of the role is what all daughters learn from. He showed me what a man is, a body with the mentality to create a family tree out of a woman's motherly nature, one who won't take no for an answer and have none of the branches connect. The tree doesn't know stay, it only knows leave. And lust has nothing to do with love, it just needs the water and the seeds. My days fall on the timeline of understanding ancestral trauma and the awareness to break general curses. I saw the truth that was never told to me. My father is gone. I always asked for him to come back, but I guess that was the problem I brought on myself, because in order to come back, you have to leave. But staying makes a home out of you. He went on to having 3 other kids to carry on the names, starting with J legacy. But out of the 3 boys, I'm the only daughter. And his disposal of me was because I was too womanly to be his son, made me feel like an outsider. Made me feel like being a woman is a sin instead of being the sister of the son. So I lay my love on men who aren't man enough as punishment. But I don't think I'd be man enough anyway if I'd be learning how to be one from you, because like father, like son, and it doesn't matter how many more children you add on into your abandonment collection, you're never gonna learn how to be a father. You made me feel ashamed for wanting a dad, for wanting you in my life, but that role made all place for men dead, and I don't see the chance of me loving another existing. All my encounters with them are universal testing. Not that I'm complaining. Men have too much ego to compensate for, but I'll never hold that against y'all. There's too much of masculine pain and pressure we rarely ever talk about. From the man of the home to the world's throne, that one responsibility doesn't have a contract. You're in to figure this out forever on your own. There's no going back or falling back. But men, us women, we still got love for you. But our toxicity can't keep throwing our train of thought off track. You show me a man with a smile that could be gentle without an inner monster. I'll show you the power of the womb, the God in humanity, in nature, you and me, because we all came from a woman. Therefore, we have the trait to not hold hatred and internal grudges for all eternity. We can make a blessing out of the curse from Adam and Eve if we can agree on the same reality. I'm a woman that never needed products to show I am beautiful, but I can make you an art piece about yours. It seems like my chest is stuck in winter forever. I don't happen to change with the seasons. It's like it won't become summer until I let go of you. I'm hurt at the truth of how you'd hug death tighter than me if you two met. But I'm questioning, if I didn't have a heartbreak, what would I have to write about? Because I want to go to New York, and maybe not for new reasons, a big city, but I got big hopes that you'll run into me. I didn't grow up in a world where the death sirens were death's dial tones. Sorry, my bad. I didn't grow up in a world where the sirens was death's dial tone, but I did grow up in a home where I did choose between being greedy or humble. Am I still a human without an ego? I'm still figuring this out. If it's something we're born with, and or if it's something we die with. The ego is a spell on one's identity. The empire we built only reached as high as the darkness in the clouds, to have a perfect view when rain and thunder came around. We didn't have a purpose to reach the heavens, but still, you crowned me your queen. But honestly, baby, I thought the idea of carrying gold on my mind was heavy, that it'd manifest me into being greedy. What's the affectional term of wanting to be adored by others? I need to check in with my heart and ask if it has a purpose other than loving. The ocean, my element, she asked me a question to where I had to explain why the sand never wanted to hold on to her. She's asking a person who thinks of escaping during an embrace. And I can't lie, because you can see it right through the transparency of my water from how shallow I've been. And thunder brings out the killer in my waves, because no element has ever claimed him as family when sorrow was out for him. I lost interest when I didn't care to figure out the color of your aura anymore, because you called me your girl and I was never your woman, so that makes me a need to be spoken for, apparently. If I wanted to be rescued, I would have stayed with you. I'm no damsel, but I'd be damned if my life stayed still. I saw her love jump from us and into another couple who's a couple of poets, but there's just some things that can't have a sequel, and there's just some things that can't be said gently. You and I can't love, at least not each other, and we know this. How are two people going to love when they ask each other, how does a heart feel? You should have your heart for a head, since you never listened to your mind. If I took away the pretty italics from love, would you take me more seriously? Metal love the grip of my teeth, and it loves the pillow of your skin when you make the glitter sink. There's no rules to this. But people shouldn't love if they're unhealed. And I can't feel your aura, but I know these wounds are real. I've made wishes on shooting stars, but it turns out they're just the moon's tears. I knew being loved wasn't for me when the kisses on my back hurt more than the stabs. But I can't keep acting like the skeletons in our closets are dinner guests. Thank you. Thank you. Real quick, you could support me on Instagram at jxd3.poetry. Thank you.
Can we give more love to Jade by saying, yes, poet? Yes, poet. I really love that line. Or if I didn't have Breakheart, what would I have to write about? I relate. Oh my God. Okay. On deck, we have Marina repping from Richmond. And up next, we have Jada. Can we give some love for the next poet?
Hey, my poem is called Wishing Upon a Star. I wish we never met. I wish I realized this temporary satisfaction is not worth the heartbreak I would get. I wish someone would have warned me about you. I wish someone could have given me CPR when I first bit off more than I could chew. I wish you would change for me. I wish that me being the best thing for you was easier for you to see. I wish you had a warning label. I wish I could push you off the roof and nobody be there to save you. I wish you loved me as much as I loved you. I wish your problems weren't so difficult and it was something we could get through. I wish your bad traits didn't exist. I wish only the good parts of you would speak and the bad parts would plead the fifth. I wish I'd said no the first time and stood by that choice. I wish even after all this pain, I could still come and hear your voice. I wish hurting me wasn't so easy for you. I wish you would fall in love with someone and they treat you this way too. I wish you had remorse for all my pain. I wish seeing me cry from what you did to me would drive you insane. I hope you get better. I hope you find another girl that loves you and you finally let her. I pray you find that missing piece. I pray you find God and choose him so that he can bring you peace. I hope my heart heals from you. I hope I see you again and I don't feel so blue. I hope I don't let this pain carry to the next one I love. I hope I transform into the one I am and let go of who I was. I wish my dreams come true. I pray for nothing but the best for me and for you. I hope you love the life you're living. I hope you know that I'm letting go of the pain and that you are forgiven. I hope my dreams stay in my reach to finish my story. I hope you realize that I forgive you even though you never said sorry.
That was a very strong opening. Wishing upon a star, and I wish I never met you. Wow. Okay, so before we get started, on deck we have Caden, and before we get started with that, let me just talk to you about the Brave New Voices. Brave New Voices is Youth Speak's biggest event, our international poetry slam, where we have 20 baddest teams coming from all the states in the country. This year is special because it's our first time since 2019 to gather in person, occurring in July 20th to 22nd. For more information, go to bravenewvoices.org. So up next, we have Marina. Thank you.
Never really done this before, but bear with me. I call this bittersweet. Strong. I'm supposed to be strong, leave the person I used to be, leave that part of my life behind. But I grieve. I grieve so much for such a sad person, sad, depressed, and anxious. A girl who barely ate, a girl who thought that death was her fate, a girl whose friends left her in the dust, the cups in her room that gathered must. I don't know why I miss the comfort in the high. It feels like self-sabotage. It feels as if I crave to be her again. It feels as if I put a Band-Aid over my past. Instead of stitches, instead of a permanent fix, I stare at my ceiling, get tangled in my feelings, waiting for everything to go wrong, but I have to stay strong. Weak. When he died, I was supposed to be weak. It was supposed to be teardrops down my face, staring into space, mourning, even in the morning. I was supposed to be oh so sad, oh so I can't move on, oh so mad, and I am. But why is it that the grief of my past self, my past life, the one that treated me so poorly, that feels so much more deep and hurtful than him dying? When you lose a past version of yourself, it's bittersweet. You feel the loss of love at the beginning. Sunday mornings aren't as sunny. Water isn't as refreshing. Smiling becomes something from the past. You don't always want to sing and dance. It all happens so fast. You hold on to hugs longer. Pajamas stay on from noon to noon. Every night you talk to the moon. You either say, please come back, or never do. Either way, you feel the lack. You feel the lack of love or darkness or both. They feel far or they feel close. You no longer fall asleep in the car. Instead, you stare out the window, waiting for the car to move backwards. Yet forwards is the only way to go, even if things go oh so slow. When you lose someone who was also sick but didn't exist in the body you are still in, the home you are still in, it's bitter but becomes tasteless. You come together with love, with the people who love you, who you love, but when you lose yourself, your past self, you're alone, you're isolated. You crave the unique sense of pain that brings you the one-of-a-kind sensation. Yet true happiness lies in the future ahead. True happiness is when your heart warms, not because of the comfort of being hurt, but when the sensation of happiness does not stem from pain. Yet the process of healing is bitter, 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 bittersweet.
Shout out to our past selves. They're the reason why we learn more and we become better. So, on deck, and our very last poet is George. And up next, we have Caden. Let's give them some love.
Okay, hi. New piece. I haven't performed this ever. So we'll see how it goes. Warning for kind of verbal abuse. Okay. Things I never say about growing up with my mom. 1. When you're small, she will cradle you in her arms, hiding you away from any harm, loving you unconditionally. But the one thing no one warned me about was that one day her conditions would flood my day-to-day life. See, growing up, it was just my mom and me. And you see, I love her, but she has made it so hard to sleep at night. I fear that one day I will wake up and be her. I wonder if her genetics have given my DNA the codes for a hate that can be held onto for decades. I wonder if the words she screamed into my ears found their way to my brain ingrained, waiting for the day I pass it on to my children. I will never risk having children if there's a possibility I end up like her. 2. The anger that I feel when I have to hear the comments about how well she raised me. Mom, I am me in spite of you, but I am not trying to spite you. I wish you could see that being a mother isn't a part-time gig, that these brownie points you get aren't something you have earned. 3, communication is key. But it's hard to communicate with someone who doesn't want to hear. My ears are burning. I wish she could speak to me without screaming, Mom, I'm sorry you felt like I lied. Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I'm sorry that I get angry when you push me to the side. I hate standing here. As these strangers give you praise, I want to raise my hand and interrupt and let these truths like lava spill. Just let myself erupt for once and know you never laid a hand on me, but I felt the pain from where your words whipped me. I'm getting backlash from this black and white contrast in behavior. 4. I don't know how you can't see that you've ruined any chance of you connecting with me when you kicked me out of the house and then a week later said you missed me. Mom, I'm 14, soon to be 15, and while I may be young, I am not naive. 5. Even now, I can see what's left over. I feel the white rage of your screams in my mind while I hide with an I'm fine, just a small white lie for your hate to hide behind. 6. How do I explain that my mother gave me everything, but always threatened to take it away, that fear outweighed the clothes, the shoes, the phone? 7. My life with you was unrocky. It was rocky. I always felt unbalanced, but now I know how to balance my feelings. I'm mature for my age because I've had to age faster than any of my peers. Apparently, trauma makes us wise beyond our years. So, Mom, thank you for your lectures, your words that were laced with venom, because I'm stronger than most adults, at least according to the many counselors. 8. Mom, when I was little, I asked myself what I did to deserve this, when what I should have asked was what you did to deserve me. I served you for years and you continued to belittle me. I am not a reference point for you to compare and contrast your life to. I am not a collector's item you get to put on display when you decide to play Mother of the Year, when I've spent years trying to be worthy of your praise, but those days are long gone. So, Mom, I don't know if I'll ever be your pride or if you'll continue to see me as your downfall, but when you finally want to work for my forgiveness, just pick up the phone and give me a call. These are 8 things I'm getting off my chest that I now want to be buried 6 feet down, because I do not want to be haunted by the sound of your voice. Instead, let me start over. This is what it was like growing up with my mother. Thank you.
That was a very strong poem. So, for today, let's all stand up as we end the night with our last poet. Can we all stand up, please? Thank you. let's just ground ourselves because that was emotional for me too. So let's raise our hands as we breathe in for 8 and then breathe out for 8 seconds, all right? Breathe in. And out. Okay, everyone, let's please give it up and let's stomp, drum roll, some snaps, some noises. Show our last poet some love. And George, can you come up here? Okay, thank you.
Hello. This is my first time performing at an event as well. And I had 4 poems that I was deciding between, and I couldn't decide. So I'm just gonna do my 2 favorites, I guess. So it's decision still, but not as much. And let me find them first. Should have had them bookmarked. I grieve my innocence. A young girl, raised in a Garden of Eden, shafts of sunlight kissing fair skin and making petals glow. She frolics among flower heads while I watch from beyond the gates, from beyond the grave. Knowledge is bitter on my tongue, going down slow as its edges cut my throat. I watch with jealousy and longing as cool nectar slips past her smile and fruits are devoured. She is blind to their importance. She breathes clean air, wind buffeting her hair into a billow behind her. The air beyond the gates is stale and polluted, each gust leaving shots, soot and rift grit on my skin. The trees of the garden bow their heads to shelter her from the storm, and what raindrops sneak through the leaves land warm and tropical and refreshing. I weather the maelstrom alone, and the lightning burns stripes into my flesh. I stick my hand through the bars and tell her you will miss the garden. She laughs like her heart isn't cast in lead, and he tells me, you already do. The next one is a not quite as heavy. I don't know, actually. It might be. On grief and healing. If grief were a string, I'd knot it loosely on my wrist, letting it mingle with the others till it looked like it belonged. I wouldn't be gentle, I'd be careless, and its fibers would wind and pull and pill into little balls as I shove my arms into jackets, bump them against the walls and desks, and scrub them in the shower. If grief were a string, I'd knot it proudly around my wrist for all to see, and its shimmering melancholy color would remind my friends of blood, of sunlight, of tears, and they'd know which of my hands to hold when we walked through crowded sidewalks or halls. If grief were a string, I'd knot it twice around my wrist, or maybe thrice, because it would be too long for just one loop, and the strangers would catch sight of it among the others, flashing like a gray hair in a sea of brown caused by stress and tiredness, and they'd dance around mentioning it, like the prettiest ballerinas you've ever seen. If grief were a string, I wouldn't let it choke me. I wouldn't let it cut into my wrist until my fingers turned blue. But grief is not a string. It's water filling my lungs. And it's so hard not to drown when I've already taken a breath. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone, for coming to our last Under 21 Open Mics event for this spring. And let's thank our poets for being on this stage. So just a friendly reminder for everyone, if you've enjoyed the event, there is the whiteboard over there for you guys to fill up the survey and help us make it be a better event for you guys to enjoy. This has been a Youth Speaks event because the next generation can speak for itself. Thank you.